Well, hello, those joining us, kids, adults, whoever's out there. We're so glad to be with you today. We're here in this beautiful home of Mathis and Liz. Mathis being Mathis Picard, our wonderful pianist and band leader, musician, composer. I'm Michael Mwenso, your host. Liz is also directing behind the screen and keeping us in order. We are here to celebrate and take you on some sounds and some history of Harlem. Some of you may live there. Some of you may know of it. Some of you may not know much about it, but today you're going to be a little bit educated about it. And we're going to talk about some heroes of Harlem, some great musicians, and also, you know, specific parts of the history. And we'll come to different places in time and express to you. We're going to actually start off with something called The Joint is Jumping. Now, The Joint is Jumping is a song by one of the greatest of geniuses. And we have many geniuses in this particular period of the Harlem Renaissance. The Harlem Renaissance was this incredible period where you have writers and scholars and musicians and dancers coming together in this particular time, migrating from the South, coming up to the North, and you have this combination of this great artistic movement that's happening, but also was a movement that was happening all over the United States. It wasn't only in Harlem. It was also happening in Pittsburgh. There was also a Renaissance happening in Chicago. There was also a Renaissance happening in Detroit. But Harlem was specific because you had these superstars. You had a Louis Armstrong. You had a Duke Ellington. You had a Fats Waller. Now, Fats Waller is this person I was talking to you about a few seconds ago that wrote this, basically a depiction of a rent party. A rent party was this incredible social situation that would happen in people's apartments when they couldn't pay the rent or so. And this is something Fats Waller and Andy Razaf call The Joint is Jumping. We can also do a clap there, Liz. Wasn't finished, sorry. We will say that Fats Waller was this. If you never heard of him, I want you to go on to Spotify right now and the Apple Music and type in this name, Fats space Waller. Why should we know about Fats Waller, Mathis?
Fats Waller was one of the kings of stride piano, which is what I was doing right here. And that was dance music from the 1930s. And within that music is basically everything that came afterwards was so deeply influenced by it. And it kind of set a trend for what we imagine to be modern dance music and pop form, and becoming a master of just this this music. On top of that, he has done a lot for visuals. Being a comedic kind of person, he embodied the piano in a certain way and became a superstar and was known all over the world.
How and why would it be relevant for me if I was 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, maybe even younger? Why would it be relevant for me to listen and to check out Fats Waller?
His approach and what he decides to go for every time that he plays, I think, is something that is one of the reasons to enjoy listening to him, which is always class, the light touch, presented. There's a part of him that is very like number one, world class, taking care of business, but uplifting, positive. He's definitely, as someone who loves like Earth, Wind and Fire, I know he's definitely set the tone. Fats Waller's music into that kind of music later on. Even the beat of Stride can be heard in all types of music later on in the years, from electronic dance music, but to even funk and people who've merged it later on.
Mathis is very right. You can hear Fats Waller's music everywhere till today, and he's very correct. Just give them a little vibe of the old trucking so they can hear just how Fats Waller takes that. Trucking was a dance, just before you get into the vibes. Trucking was a dance that they would do in the late 20s. Everybody did it. Duke Ellington did it. Fletcher Henderson did it. Ethel Waters did it. But it just would be interesting just so you get the vibe of how Fats funked it up. Very beautiful. And trucking was the name of the dance. And the Harlem Renaissance was, like I said, this artistic movement where theater was important, literature, drama, plays were being written. But dance was a specific part of it too. Now, another dance that was a craze. When we say dance craze, it means just like the robot is and the twerking or whatever they're into right now. So was the Charleston. Now, the Charleston was conceived in a certain way, in the dance halls, and they were shaking and moving and doing things like that. And check on the YouTube today. To Charleston. But Mathis is going to give you, there was always a collaboration between what the artist in the movement were doing. So if there was a dance, then the musicians would create a song for it, or they would compose something as a backdrop. That's how connected the art form was going. It was all connected. It wasn't separate. If there was a dance, then the composers write something about it. So this is now the Charleston Rag. This is by Eubie Blake. Eubie Blake, we'll give you a little bit about Eubie Blake in a bit. But if you're talking about Shuffle Along and some of the early Broadway black productions, Hot Chocolates, Eubie Blake was a seminal piece to creating a body of work that took black music and black art into the theatrical world. This is the Charleston Rag. What can we tell about Eubie Blake as a person?
Eubie Blake, a very wise, first of all, a wise person who's lived a super long life. In the 90s, I think he lived, and taught so many people, taught a lot of the heroes that we're talking about in the Renaissance, in the Harlem Renaissance, and his approach to harmony and his approach to the romanticization of the music. He's there's a certain warmth to his music that is unlike any other people that come after him. It's sort of like the perfect blend between church vibe, church music, and going into the Broadway world and commercial. Like, he knew both those vibes and were able. So a lot of his music also, to me, is freedom and like the blues. The message that he gives kind of just hits in a certain way that is even deeper in his music. Like when I play the Charleston Rag, I feel like the message is older, which it is, but I feel like it's just as valid today, what he's saying.
Well, we come to this time to also remember something that the people from the South brought with them. What did they bring from Alabama? What did they bring from Georgia? What did they bring from different parts of the South? They didn't want to remember a lot of things from the South. They didn't want to remember the pain. They didn't want to remember the trials and tribulations. But one thing they brought up to Detroit and Pittsburgh and New York was the blues. That somehow maintained in black people migrating all over the United States. It somehow stayed in the embodiment of their spirit, of their spiritual structure. It stayed in their music for years and years to come. It stayed in their attitude of hope, of the blues, of what it is that, you know, there's good days and there's bad days, but we're going to get over it. This spirit that immigrants have continued to live with. As we come even to this world that we're in today, we see that we're still brought here of a manner of dealing with the blues and hoping that one day it would get better. So we come now to a man called W.C. Handy. Interesting, you could say, music figure, publisher, realized what the blues was and how it could be sold, and one day decided to talk about a woman from St. Louis called the blues. Well, you've heard some names. You've heard some stories. We've said Fats Waller. We've said Fats Waller. We've said Eubie Blake. We said Eubie Blake. We said W.C. Handy. We said the blues. We've spoken about the migration. We've spoken about this movement. We've spoken about the Harlem Renaissance, what it was, how it connected people, how it was an intellectual movement, a musical movement, an artistic movement. a gathering of minds and spirits that never again has come together in that time again like that way. So please remember these names. Please go on Spotify. Please go on Apple Music. Please support Mathis Picard. Also check out Mwenso and the Shakes, our own music. Go and support Liz, who's behind the screen. And we say to you, Lincoln Center, and who else is watching this, remember Harlem, support it. See you soon.